Morning, everyone. Oh, it's not my job to call this meeting to order. Anyway, over to you.
I was just
Councillor
going to let you
Garfinkel.
go with it. Good morning, everyone. I'll call the corporate and residential testing. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Corporate and Residential Services Committee to order. We'll start with the acknowledgement. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki and the district of Spagnagity, the ancestral territory in Mi'kmaq of the Mi'kmaq people. East Hants further acknowledges the 50 African Nova Scotian communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, and legacies. We are all treaty people. Okay, first I'll be looking for any changes to the agenda of all subcommittees. And Warden, if you can take the chair for a moment.
Sure.
I would just like to add an item to the agenda, and that would be the topic of the Dory Lane development and the extension into Alderney Drive
Under I&O.
under I&O. And everyone in favor of that?
We can just do agreement.
She needs to be in the chair.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you
Sorry,
go ahead.
folks. Has everyone agreed to that? Okay.
Okay, it has been added to the agenda. Looking for.
Back to you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you, Warden. Okay, looking for the approval or any changes to the minutes of May 19th, 2026. Seeing no changes, the minutes are approved. I would also like to add that Councillor McPhee is on official business today, so he will not be joining us, official council business. And we also have regrets from Councillor Perry and Deputy Warden Dixon. Okay, the first item on our agenda is new employee announcements with the CAO.
Good morning, Council. This morning I've got two announcements. One is a new employee and one is a position change. First of all, we have Mike Chetty in the gallery with us. He joined us yesterday, so you can have a seat. So we're really pleased to have Mike on board as the business analyst in the I&O department. So this year we've committed to improving our budget planning, operational planning, working through better data-driven decision management and whatnot. So Mike has significant experience in his previous roles working with all of that, and we are so excited to have him as part of the I&O department. So we welcome you, and hopefully we'll have lots of fun chats in the future about data. We love data. The next announcement that I have is Zoe Pearson. So Zoe joined us in 2019, right before we opened up the new aquatic center, as a daytime lifeguard in our training program. She's been with us teaching Zumba for a number of years, and we're very pleased to announce that she has been awarded the position of aquatic supervisor, which is a replacement position for Brittany, who moved over to the Parks, Rec and Culture Department in administration. So very excited to have Zoe on board. I know the whole team over the Aquatic Center is excited to have Zoe in that role. So we welcome Zoe to her full-time role as aquatic supervisor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the tax and water collection policy with Wade. Oh. Councillor Mitchell?
I just want to apologize to Mike. When I was talking about in the foyer, I thought he was part of Jesse's security detail, and so I just want to make that official now that I know what he.
He's one of us.
Huh?
He's one of us.
Yes.
Okay, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, everybody. I have two short items this morning, more or less housekeeping items. The first is a revision to the tax and water collection policy. As you know, recently we finished up with the NSRAB, or Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board, in relation to our water utility rate review. And as a follow-up to that, we felt that we should update the council policy on this for a few minor issues. They really relate to housekeeping items, relation to the name change of the NSRAB to NSUARB, or sorry, vice versa, and title of the director and references to EPOS. So relatively minor changes. And these changes are noted in the Council Chambers Online file that you have. They're all noted in red for the changes that we're proposing. And the motion here is this first item dated today's date, June 16th. If there's any questions on this, but it's relatively straightforward updating of that policy item.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Merriam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Of course, went through the report, as I'm sure everyone did. It seemed pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go ahead and make the motion. I move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that Council give notice of intent to approve amendments to Council policy, tax and water collection as attached to the executive agenda dated June 16, 2026.
Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one to comment, we'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously.
Okay, I'll move on to the next agenda item. Again, this is another housekeeping item. This relates to a motion that council had provided to staff way back in December 2024, whereby the fees for private roads entities has been changed from 5% to 3%. And in practice, Finance Department did start charging 3% on those back at that time frame. However, we noted recently that the bylaw F300 was not updated to that 3% factor, and we felt that we should take this opportunity to get that straightened away as well. Again, a very minor housekeeping item, and as you can see on page somewhere, page 4, we changed that here, I think so, somewhere, down. Oh, okay, it's in blue, okay. Yep, so it was 5% and it's changed to 3% now. And that's really it, relatively minor housekeeping item for that bylaw to get it updated. And that is the recommended motion right there.
Okay. Councillor Merriam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Similarly, I would like to move this motion too. I move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that Council give first reading to bylaw F300-1, an amendment to bylaw F300, a bylaw respecting the maintenance and improvement of private roads as attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated June 16, 2026.
Moved and seconded. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is... Okay. It's the bylaw F300-1, on amendment to bylaw F300, bylaw respecting, okay, sorry. Okay, request from the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq Feasibility Study, Green Municipal Fund, and Warburton. And she will be here momentarily. Sure. Okay, we'll go where we're running a little ahead of schedule. We'll go to the next item, which is funding sources for bottled water distribution with Adam Clarkson.
Thank you. All right, committee, thank you. So as committee is aware, the province announced they canceled their bottled water program. For this fiscal year, they were reimbursing municipalities that provided water to the communities during extended drought periods. The province has essentially said drought is no longer considered an emergency for them. Drought has been happening year over year continuously, and that from an emergency management side, it's not something that they're going to continue to support on the ground level that way. They have done quite a few things, and I'll mention them as well here. But just from that announcement, council asked for us to return, should you choose to provide a bottled water program, with financial options. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of because we did, the CAO and I did, we were away last week and had quite a few conversations with the province, and was able to incorporate some of it into the report, but some of it was also after the report was published. But the province, just to note, they've stood up a water resiliency committee of various deputy ministers across the province to really focus on water resiliency, and they've done a handful of things, and I'm just going to kind of touch on some of them. They're working on some additional communication and messaging that's going to be coming out here. And one of the messages that the provinces told us last week is that residents and Nova Scotians that have their own wells need to consider themselves as a water utility owner themselves, just like East Hants has a water utility, and you have an obligation to your those customers on the water utility. The language the province is starting to use is that residents, Nova Scotians on a well, are their own water utility, and as such, they need to plan and support that. They're also looking. It's really promising listening to some of the pieces the province was mentioning last week around strategic planning. They're looking at long-term strategic planning around drought that will help us. They've also released a $6 million grant as part of it. So they said we're going to stop the bottled water program, but we're gonna create a grant program. And that was just recently announced. Some of our staff attended it yesterday to learn more. We do need to follow up on that session because it was a very preliminary info session on that. Some of the other things that they've done, I'm just going to keep scrolling here on my list, is they're also offering, so those municipalities that choose to provide a bottled water program, they're offering some procurement on the front end that municipalities can choose to participate, and they've kind of labeled that as a transition option for municipalities. What we also have learned through some of Calvin's jurisdictional scan that he did for this report, and also like the municipality of Barrington is a really good example. They started a bottled water program over 10 years ago, and they've stopped it a few years ago because as they started the program, it grew and it grew and it grew, and they weren't able to sustain it from a resourcing perspective. And so they weren't offering a program last year, I don't think, for the last few years. On the flip side, though, one municipality within Nova Scotia has budgeted $75,000 this year for a water program. Our program last year, dollar-wise, was relatively small. I think it was 30-something hundred is in the staff report. But it was also our first year dipping our toes into it. And I did have a conversation with the warden at the beginning of that program, even before we made that decision at the staff level. And the risk, we had a really conversation around the risk in starting something and continuing on. We didn't know also, and it was the right thing to do for our residents last year. as we did that. And we didn't know the province was also going to stop their program and shift their messaging. But I would acknowledge that piece, that it's when you start providing something for your residents, it's tough to pull back. And last year, the way our program worked, Calvin and the team and Amy, the two of them, did a phenomenal job kind of going around the municipality, kind of dipping our toes and seeing where the needs were. It wasn't a full, it was a program and we reached it. But if we continue down this path, we're going to have to be more dedicated, provide more resourcing, and be more consistent with our program over time, and it'll continue to add to the resourcing. And we'd probably have to look to our volunteers. Some municipalities have used fire departments and so forth to help execute that. And one municipality has even pulled it out of their emergency management. They said, okay, this isn't emergency management. This is an organizational piece. The other messaging we heard from the province last week is around, the lower cost, higher impact options such as cisterns. And council has your well and septic program, that cisterns are an option in that. And we have actually seen one applicant be successful with the cisterns amongst other pieces to their project. So you'll probably see some more messaging from the province around encouraging cisterns and that sort of thing. There is still a cost to that, and there is a burden to the homeowner. There are options in the staff report here if you want to keep going with the program with it, how you could fund it. There is an alternative. Well, there's lots of alternatives in the report. One of them is really you're undergoing your MCAP program, your Municipal Climate Action Plan program update that Anne's been working on, and the team and the organizations and the community has been working on. So we are looking at drought measures and mitigation measures through that process, but if you did provide direction, that will give us the direction to kind of dive deeper into that through our really council strategy update on that. So I think I've touched on kind of where the province is, where the messaging is, where we were last year. If council wants to choose to provide that direction. The only other thing I didn't add is our current state. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball with the weather. I mean, okay, it's raining today, but that's really not improving. It'll buy a day or so of time. Our winter was similar to last winter in the spring. Our water levels in the report, it's showing it's higher than last year. But we're 3 weeks ahead of kind of where we were last year, pending any significant rainfall. We just don't have that crystal ball. Are we going to have big rainfalls or aren't we? So no one has that answer. And so the other pieces are around our messaging. You'll see too, is we'll need to start increasing our messaging as an organization, regardless of where council goes with this conversation, just around preparedness and around opportunities and drought measures. And going back to the climate action plan, maybe something we look at through that is like rain barrel programs or something like that, other programs that can support our residents as well. So unless there's anything to add, I'll just turn it back to the chair for the discussion and go from there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. First of all, I just ask councillors to turn your systems, sign back in if you haven't already, and we will go to the warden first.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to say it. I told you so. Our residents across this municipality are a resilient lot, particularly those who are on wells and septics. And as I indicated last year, they always understood that in times of drought, they were going to bear extra expense and responsibility and need to get water. Having said that, I was certainly not going to vote against taking part in a program that would help them out with potable water during one of the worst droughts that I can remember. But I did caution at the time that if you're going to do this, you're going to create an expectation that this is a service you're going to provide. And bingo, that's exactly what we did. We provided drinking water to folks. Some were extremely grateful to have that potable water at the times they got it. Some were annoyed that they couldn't get more. But it was a good program. It was used and it was appreciated. But now, in the minds of those residents, we have created an expectation that we will help them if circumstances warrant again. So I don't want, I'm certainly interested in exploring more things through the option 3 in our climate adaptation plan. I would certainly support exploring options there. I don't want to slam the door completely on a bottled water program because we don't know what this summer season is going to look like. So, I'm not going to suggest that we say, oh, we'll provide bottled water in perpetuity if drought conditions reach X or anything like that. But I would like to have that door open so that in August, when we don't meet, if suddenly the province is in a bad situation again, that, we would be able to do some small bit. It was not expensive. Even if we had paid for the water last year, it was not a lot of money, I think $3,600. And it did make a difference. So it is a tough one. It's kind of what I was afraid of last year might happen. And as far our well and septic program is very good, but it doesn't provide assistance for all rural residents. And you've got a lot of rural residents out there who probably have the ability to go get a loan if they need to drill a well or replace a sewer or whatever. They may have the ability to do that, but they may not feel that they're in a position to carry the extra debt load. And that is the same for people who do qualify for the well and septic situation. They may qualify and they may get approved, but they still have to carry that extra debt load, whether they're paying it to us or to a bank or who they're paying it to. And people are trying, I believe, to manage their finances and their debt loads as judiciously as possible these days. So there are no easy answers. I'll leave to see what others think. I would just like to leave the door open that if necessary, we could do a bottled water program on a similar scale as to what we did last year. And depending on circumstances. And I'd even go so far as to say staff could set some criteria or look at it as to when that might have to happen. But like I said, that's just my thoughts right now. I wouldn't want to have given it 1 year and then just pull the rug out, even if we say, limited. I don't know, but I just don't think you can start and offer the public something 1 year and provide it, and then the next year say, well, we can't get any money from the province anymore. They don't care where we got the money. We can't say, well, you'll have to go thirsty this year. We're not going to help you out. So those are my comments. I think we have created a bit of an expectation with the public, and I think we should proceed judiciously. And if we're not going to be able to provide it ongoing every year automatically, we should at least provide some notice and be prepared to fill in the gaps as we look at other alternatives. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next to speak is Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, I really do have empathy for any of our residents in East Hants who are experiencing water issues. It's a significant problem. And full disclosure, I have a well. Many people in District 6 have wells. Many people in our municipality have wells. I know firsthand what a serious issue this is. I look back at the work that we've done in the last year on focusing on increased program funding for the well and septic program. And I think, as a council, we can be proud of that work. I suspect that work could, over time, could be further enhanced depending on the will of council. Looking at the situation as I understand it, there's been a pullback from the province. There's no provincial or federal offsetting revenue programs to support this type of initiative at the municipality. And as staff have indicated in the report they prepared, a jurisdictional scan shows that municipal partners have moved away from this program as well, even in very affected drought areas of the province. So for these reasons, even though I'm extremely empathetic for our residents undergoing water issues, I would prefer to focus on more of a larger solution, which is again focusing on our well and septic program as we've done in the past. And for those reasons, I'm not supportive of continuing with the bottled water program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, first, I just want to comment on the point that we don't have a crystal ball. We don't have a crystal ball, but we know we're going to have droughts and floods and fires. So this is something we're going to have to deal with, the water problem, the droughts. Bottled water is a Band-Aid solution, but I kind of on side with the warden a bit here type of thing. I'd like to be able to help people in the short term if we could, but I think we need to identify a longer term solution, and our climate action plan, whatever we're going to do around droughts, floods, fires, etc. We have to identify a solid plan on how we're going to deal with this and start working towards it. We might not be able to solve everything in a day or a week or a month or a year, but we have to start taking this a little more seriously and come up with a plan to manage these, or I think we should be coming up with a plan to help manage these risks. I agree that there's a lot of responsibility on the residents to manage their own wells if they're providing their own water, similar to a utility. But just got back from FCM. I know a lot of municipalities across Canada are grappling with this. We're not the only municipality, and some are finding solutions. We're at various points, but I'm not against the bottled water on a temporary basis, especially for the costs that are involved. But I'd really like to see a stronger plan to deal with this. And that's my only comments.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just the 3,600, does that include the fill station or just the bottled water as?
No, that does not include the fill
Fill
station from the
station
aquatic
this
center. That would have been paid back to the water utility. So it doesn't have that cost. And I don't know that we, I'll just leave it at that.
The second one deals with the bulk water station in Enfield. Based on the new water rates, has there any discussion of, I guess, giving them a break at the fill station? Some have say it's
Through
doubled
you-
or whatever.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, the utility rates are set through legislative process.
Okay. And the last one is the utility. Does that, I'm trying to phrase it, does the utility own the bulk water station? Is that part of
Correct.
the process? It is?
Through you, Madam Chair, correct. So it's the water utility.
Okay, so the water given last year came from the utility?
At the bulk water station, correct. It wasn't given, it was paid for.
It was paid for,
Yeah,
and the water that was given,
through the bulk haulers.
okay. What about at the aquatic center?
I'd have to check to see if we did a journal entry. I would assume we did a journal entry
So
through
you
our,
know how much was,
maybe
much is
the
drawn?
CAO can comment on that.
Go ahead.
So the, councillors, the water that was drawn from the aquatic center pays a bill to the water utility.
okay.
So the aquatic center operations would have paid for that. We wouldn't have done a journal entry to move that money to EMO, but the general tax rate still paid for the water that was being used at the aquatic center.
Well, just as a note, I'm in favor of helping out the residents whichever way we can, and you've answered my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next is Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I've had a discussion about this exact topic with multiple residents in the recent weeks, actually, and most of them appreciated the water last year, and they realized that they have the responsibility to do something they haven't done in many years, which is maintain their wells, whether it be a dug well or drilled well. A lot of people have let them go for decades without any type of maintenance, which has gone to making the problem even harder for water. So I do know at least 4 or 5 people that got water from us last year that now have had their wells maintained and brought back up to where they should be to provide them with water. And I agree with the province is that, you know, you're responsible when you're on a well and septic, you're responsible for your own water and your own septic, whether it be legally, if your septic is leaching and leaking, you get fined by the Department of Environment. You know, the residents in the serviced area pay a higher tax to have that service. I don't think we should completely get away like for an emergency situation, but you know, preparing for something that's going to happen year after year is not an emergency. It becomes the new norm, right? And people need to adjust to that new norm. I believe moving forward, we might have to look at our well program and look at adding to allow people to get loans to maintain their wells, whether it be to have a new pump, a new electrical line, a dug well to be reconditioned where the silting happens and blocks off the water vein. All these things cause stress on those that are not on a water service. And I think offering those options would be a better long-term solution than the Band-Aid of just providing bottled water. Everybody I spoke to in my area expected that to be a one-off. Nobody expected them to get bottled water forever. There's been no expectation, and my entire district is on well and septic. So they saw it as a nice thank you to the municipality, but they don't expect to get water every year from the municipality. And I do know some people who were there, because I stopped by to see, who were getting water, and they were just getting it because they could get it. It wasn't even that they needed it in some cases. So that's the other thing. I'm glad it wasn't super abused, but that was my worry about it, because if people can get something for nothing, they'll always go for that. But I tend to agree with Councillor Merriam that we should look at expanding maybe our loan program in such a way that it encompasses some of those other things going forward, because that's going to be the best help to our residents and keeping our ability for them to manage their own system. Because let's face it, everybody, we need to let people live free with less government oversight, not more. And I don't think we should be getting involved in every little thing along the way. I believe we should always have the ability to offer assistance, and in those cases, that direction should come from EMO, that this is an unusual drought, right? If there is a particular drought that is projected every year, that in August we're going to be low on water, then that's fine. But if all of a sudden we're low on water in June and into October, those would be out of scope droughts. That then there would be an EMO factor come in, and I believe EMO could then come back to council and ask for direction at that time for what they would like to take. So I just think that we're starting to get into a practice here of over-regulating everything, and I think we need to also have some accountability on the residents to look after themselves as well. In that case, and when assistance is required, we need the mechanisms to be able to act, but I don't think we need to keep propping up a program until that time. I believe we should be enabling them to act, to get their wells up to snuff. If they have a dug well that is failing, then maybe they can apply to get a drilled well. All these things. There's a reason why. You know, they make savings every year on their taxes for that reason. I know I put a well and septic in my place 7 years ago, and it will be an eon before I'd make up what it would cost if I was paying it on my tax bill. But that's the choice people make to live in the rural area. And all choices have consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Just going to let the CAO weigh in on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for clarity, your loan program for well and septic currently does allow you to do those things that you mentioned. So there is a maintenance component to it if you need, it's not a completely new well that you need to be doing. You can be doing some of those other, we call it, it's maintenance, but it's bigger upgrades to your well.
I don't know if that's known in the program. I think a lot of people think
Yeah.
it's just for a new well and a new septic. They don't know it's what septic maintenance and well maintenance.
Yeah. It wouldn't be to like have your septic,
Pumped out.
pumped out. I was gonna say slurped, but that's not the right word. But it would be to have like pump upgrades and whatnot done in your well and septic.
Thank you. Counselor Rhino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Interesting discussion. I don't want, the same as the warden, once you start something, it's hard to take back. However, I don't want to throw the bottled water program out completely if there is a need and in a very emergent situation. I would, and I would actually like some kind of guidance or staff report with regard to, with the bottled water, you get a whole bunch of plastic bottles, and that's kind of going against what we're kind of doing here with recycling and program, and want to stay away from that. I'd be more interested to see if we could put a bulk water station or a bulk water truck in a certain times, if in an emergency situation where people could bring their own containers, and that would cut back on some of the bottled water stuff. Or maybe possibly, I'm just throwing this out there, some fire stations. I know Maitland has put in an outside tap for people during the drought. They have a good well, and to put in an outside tap and people can come there and go. So that could be an avenue. Maybe other fire departments or other places around the municipality would be willing to do that. I'm just throwing that out there. Being the one who first brought this well program years ago, or the challenges of not having a good water and good well, and it morphed into this program that now created, I am not against upping that at some point and making that more available to more people, and that would take more funding. So I'm open to that. But I think it's going to have to be for emergency situations, and then this shouldn't be we're going to do this every summer sort of thing. So I think the weather and the atmosphere is going to dictate, when and how we do this. But in the bottom line, don't say no to any more bottled water, because it's better than none, and that's what a lot of people went through during that drought of last year. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Warden?
Thank you. Yes, I actually tried to do some research around community wells, because I saw that phrase pop up through the province in different places, but I was not able to really find a whole lot of information that told me a lot as to, what the treatment standards would be, or if there would be, or just what that would involve. So I would be interested at some point in hearing more about that. I do agree, and having heard Councillor Rhino, I think that's a good plan, and I think that's something that we might be able to engage fire departments and that on, understanding that not all fire halls may have the type of water supply needed for that, because I'm just thinking, I think they have lots of water in Rawdon, but it costs a lot to treat it and keep it fit to use. They have quite an extensive system there. And to pass it on to volunteer fire departments, then they have to have somebody overseeing that to make sure some person doesn't just leave the tap running all the time and things like that. There's risk with that too, but it's certainly something worth talking to those folks and maybe other community groups about. And I am a bit intrigued, I hadn't thought of it, but the idea, if we find ourselves in a real drought situation, of instead of giving out the plastic bottles of water, of having a water truck go periodically to certain locations, and people could bring their own containers and fill them, and, you know, maybe you would probably have to set a limit on it, because somebody would show up with a tote on the back of their half-ton truck to, you know, to fill off the truck. If you don't, it's human nature. But you could certainly say, you know, anyone can be at location X from such and such a time to such and such a time and fill up to so many liters of treated water at that time. And
Like a pop-up.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's something worth, like I said, I just don't want to pass a motion that would prevent us from reacting quickly if there was a super emergent drought or situation come up, that's all. And like I said, I'm not saying we should establish a bottled water program to go on in perpetuity. So I don't know how we word it or how we do it. I'll try a motion. I move that staff bring back further information around the possibility of working with community groups and also of working with a bulk water carrier to be able to respond in times of extreme drought if necessary, and exactly what that might look like. And that could include a suggestion of what would consider an emergent drought. Maybe if it's at a time that we're looking at asking the people on the system to conserve water or something like that, it could be tied to. But if we could just have something that would look at that and what the cost might be. And then when we get into that number 3 about climate adaptation, I think that's the time I'd like to look at exactly what do they mean by a community well, and what's that all about? And it may be something that if you have to treat the water to a certain standard, you might be into something so expensive that it's not doable at all. I don't know. So those are my comments, and my motion is for a further staff report around those things that I mentioned, the possibility of a bulk water truck, the possibility of working with community groups to be able to provide avenues for folks to fill containers during drought conditions. Thank you.
Motion made and seconded. On before the motion, Counselor Tingley?
Through the chair, I'm agreeable to this motion, but I'm just a question of staff. Are we going to be coming back at some time with a longer term or more of an investigation and a longer term solution for this problem? I know other municipalities across Canada are working on it. And I've talked to some big rural communities, 700 square miles, that are finding solutions to it. I'm just wondering, are we working on something, or are we going to come back to council with a plan?
Through you, Madam Chair. So this is a big conversation of late. The bottled water program, as you said, is sort of a Band-Aid. You know, there's not very many people who can't go to the store and buy bottled water. So it's a short-term fix to provide something to people. The longer-term fix that people can't really do on their own is think about and be prepared for drought and resilience and water resilience and better water management. So that's where the province is focused. Their deputy minister roundtable, they've established a deputy minister roundtable on water management. So it has representatives at the deputy minister level from across the province. So they're taking from across all the departments. So they're taking this very seriously. And their intent, and we discussed this at our EMO planning meeting last night, where we need to get to as well, is number 3. So we need to be looking at ways that we can support our residents, not with immediate fixes, but with long-term strategic fixes on their own properties. That might look like helping them understand what a cistern is and how, maybe you have one cistern or maybe 3 or 4 cistern types designed that people can then take that and have them and procure them. Maybe you procure cisterns on a provincial standing offer that people can then get that pricing for. People have done that with rain barrels. Cisterns are just sort of that next level for potable drinking water in your home. There's a lot that we can do, and it's not specifically outlined in your long-term strategic plan, but I think this is one of those issues that is sort of, people were dealing with it, and then they just hit a wall. And now it's sort of that we need to step in and provide them information and help them. We do have our climate action plan being worked on. This would naturally fit in there as an initiative, but I think you're going to have to get there sooner than maybe later, because people do need to be provided with information that they just don't know about well maintenance specifically. The new program that came out from the province does talk about community wells and cisterns and whatnot, not necessarily just for municipalities. It is also for community groups and Indigenous communities and whatnot. There's about $6 million in there. It's a good example of us just not being ready for that kind of grant program. Like, we don't know what the program looks like. So we do have to think about that. We are thinking about it at the staff level. And I think with a report like this, we may end up putting more in there once we know more about what your next steps should be with respect to water management and resilience. Because I think that is more than just a buzzword. People really do need to pay attention and, to Councillor Perry's point, put some time and energy into managing their wells and understanding how they're going to be impacted by drought. There's a lot of moving parts in this conversation, and bottled water is just a very, very tiny part of that. So I think it is a topic. Once you know better, you do better, and this wasn't on our radar when we did the strategic plan last year as a bigger societal issue. And I think that's where council is probably going to have to go.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Musa to the motion? Go ahead.
I just want to agree 100% with the CAO about the education piece. And about the bottled water, I can speak about my area. I know the grocery stores sell tons of bottled water with a draft or without, so people are buying their water there all the time. So it doesn't make any difference if it's draft or no, because most people cannot drink their well water, so they have to buy it. And to fix the biggest problem there, which is like potable water, I don't think we're gonna do anything to be able to fix it except our well and septic program. And I don't think we need, I'm 100% against keeping that bottled water for now. Like, okay, sounds good.
Councillor Rhino to the motion?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, the explanation that the CAO gave, I can agree with a lot of it. However, I would say, many people in East Hants can afford bottled water, but there's many people that can't afford bottled water. Those are the seniors that are on fixed incomes. Those are the people that are struggling day to day. And if their well goes dry, even any cost, it puts a hardship on the budget of those people. So I think we better, clarify that and not just say, yeah, everybody can go and get bottled water, because that's not true. And it puts a hardship on people when their well goes dry. So we got to think of those people. Thank you.
Thank you. Warden, if you would just take the chair. Thank you. A lot of good comments that I agree with. And I feel like while we may not be in a position to set up a more formal or more intense water program, I definitely am in support of having something available to the residents if at staff's discretion, if the time comes. As well, I am on the Source Water Protection Committee, and I would really like to see some kind of a rain barrel program in East Hants. I wonder if we could, when you are, when staff is doing up this report, you know, it kind of alluded to maybe, could we add rain barrels to that, or does that need to be something separate? I'm actually thinking of, you know, a kind of program like maybe looking to other, you know, municipalities to see if they've done anything of that nature. I just see the value. I have a rain barrel, and I know some of my siblings have them, some of them in well areas. They are getting more this year because maybe it's not drinkable water, but when you have no water, you realize how any water can be really valuable in your home. And I just think it is a phenomenal way to collect water. Adam, go ahead.
I'm still in the chair.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Adam.
Through you, Madam Warren, I think we could look at rain barrels in the initial, how far we can dig right away. But we'll bring it back with our climate team as well and have that conversation. And you know, we'll have it a piece of it in the report. How far we can get it still may be a longer term strategic initiative, but we'll add it to our overview list and we'll see where we get in the short term.
Okay, I did realize that maybe it should be a separate, I was going to bring it up anyways, a separate issue, but if it can tie into this and it's timely, yeah, okay, that's it for me, thank you.
I'll turn the chair back over.
Thank you, Warden. Okay, seeing no one left to speak, we've got a motion on the floor and we'll go to the vote. Okay, and the motion has passed with a vote of 8-1, with Councillor Perry voting nay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is bylaw F300-1.
Number 11.
You really want to do that report again, don't you?
Request from the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq feasibility study with
Ann Warburton.
Ann Warburton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In April of 2026, the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq reached out to us to let us know that they were going to be applying to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for project money to do a feasibility study through a climate adaptation funding stream. So you might be asking, a feasibility study of what? The Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq is looking to do a feasibility study about creating and integrating terrestrial wetlands into active farming operations. What this would do, in theory, is provide natural water filtration and retention systems. They are looking to do this study within the Shubenacadie-Stewiacke primary watershed. Because this is the geographic location of their study, they reached out to us for a letter of support and to provide some staff time in kind, approximately 11 hours, to serve on an advisory committee. To be clear, a letter of support from us is a requirement of the FCM for eligibility for funding. And I repeat, to be eligible for GMF funding, non-municipal applications like the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq must be delivered, and this is FCM language, in partnership with one. So they are looking for a municipal council resolution stating municipal partnership before funding approval. And again, partnership means, in this case, a letter of support as well as some in-kind staff time. They also reached out to the Colchester municipality, and I was speaking with them this morning, and their council did pass a resolution last Thursday night to also provide a letter of support and in-kind staff time. Staff recommends that we do partner with CMM for this feasibility study, and we listed 6 reasons in our report to do so, but I'd like to highlight 3 of them. First, terrestrial wetlands are an example of a nature-based solution for addressing the negative impacts of changing climate conditions. And I'm sure those of you who were recently at the FCM conference heard a lot about nature-based solutions, which leads to the other reasons we are recommending that we provide a letter of support and staff time for this project. There is a lot of funding that is being driven toward natural asset-based solutions. And so this is an excellent learning opportunity for us as an organization. It is also an opportunity for relationship building. For these reasons, staff recommends that we do provide municipal partnership, which is the letter of support and hours of staff time in kind, in alignment with FCM's funding requirement. And the motion is on the screen.
Okay, thank you. First, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff. What would consist of the in-kind work? Why is the need of that? And is that that the letter of support is part of the FCM rules? However, is the in-kind support, is that included in this FCM want?
Through the chair. Yes, in terms of FCM language, municipal partnership means a letter of support, as you said, and a cash or in-kind contribution. And our in-kind contribution would be approximately 11 hours of staff time, sitting on a committee, enabling us to learn about the project, what's happening, where, how. And may I add also that one of the benefits to us serving on this committee is that at the end of the project, they have agreed, and we have it in writing, that they would share all of their findings and data with us.
Well, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next is Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the Confederation of Mainland Mi'kmaq. Has Spaganagity weighed in on this in their respect? Because I do know from looking at the news in the past, there's been a few times that Spaganagity and the mainland organization have not always seen eye to eye, and I would be kind of weary of going against something that the neighboring band in this area would be against.
Through the chair, we asked the exact same question, and we're told by the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq that Sipekne'katik is at the table, and they are also serving on the advisory committee.
Okay.
And they are aware of the project.
Has anybody reached out to Spaganagity to confirm that?
Through the chair, no, we have not.
Okay.
Our staff has not.
That's kind of disappointing. I would have thought that would have been the first thing to do, would be to reach out to them. Because it is going to be studied right in their area to confirm that the local stakeholder is well aware, rather than just taking the overarching, because there's lots of times the province says that we buy into things and we have never been notified about them as a municipality. So that, as just a point, maybe going down the road for procedure might want to be looked at. Because I don't see any problem with this. To me, it's just making sure everything lines up and everything is going the right way, because we don't want to sour any relationships. We've been trying to build relationships for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to speak is the warden.
Thank you. Well, I might differ a little bit. I would not challenge the statement of the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq, because to me it would be similar We don't always agree with NSFM, but I don't believe that NSFM would say East Hants is on board with this. I clearly knew that East Hants was not. And I don't believe that the Confederation of Mainland Mi'kmaq would say that a band was on board if they clearly were not. I think this is a good opportunity for cooperation and an opportunity to gain some data and perhaps an opportunity for our agricultural community going forward to improve their access to water. And given the previous conversation about drought and the scarcity of water and that, I do think it is timely. So for those reasons, I'm going to move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that Council authorize the municipality of East Hants to be listed as a municipal partner for the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq's application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation Funding Initiative for the project titled Feasibility Study for Terrestrial Wetland Creation on Agricultural Lands in the Municipalities of Colchester and East Hants, and move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that Council authorize the CAO to provide a letter of support as required as part of the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq's application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation Funding Initiative for the project titled Feasibility Study for Terrestrial Wetland Creation on Agricultural Lands in the Municipalities of Colchester and East Hants.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the vote.
And I would just add before we vote that Chief Glasgow of Sabaganagadie does sit on the board of the Confederation of Mainland Mi'kmaq.
Great. Okay, so the vote has passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Council, it's 10:05. Parks, Rec, and Culture Committee is scheduled to be 15 minutes long with one item. Do you want to proceed with that before our scheduled adjournment and break at 10:20? What is your wish? Okay, we'll go ahead. Councilor Rhino? So this concludes the business of Corporate and Residential Services Committee, and we are adjourned.
And everyone, we have to sign in again, reminder as we change committee.
No paper copy?
Sandra, did you take the copy? The paper copy of the agenda?
I can bring us up here.
That's okay.
I'd like to call the, to order the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee. Is there any errors or omissions with, May 19th, 2026, minutes? Seeing none, approve them. Item 16, score clock donation request, Alana Tapper and Scott, Preston, you'll be taking that?
I'll be taking it, yeah.
You'll be taking that, okay, sir.
All right, thank you. Good morning, council. This report is it's really a donation request report in regards to the East Hants Sport Heritage Society. So the Sport Heritage Society has acquired the scoreboard from the original arena in Lance that was built in 1950. And so this group has acquired that scoreboard. They're requesting that it be donated to the municipality and displayed in the East Hants Sportsplex to showcase the history of sport and volunteerism in this community. The scoreboard does contain an old puck-dented Export A tobacco panel, and I'll discuss in this report that Health Canada has confirmed that this does not violate the Tobacco and Vaping Products Act. We have an estimated cost to install the scoreboard, which includes engineering assessment of $5,000, and I'll get to that in a minute. So just some background, the East Hants Arena Association was formed to construct an arena in Lance in 1948. And after support of the community and L.E. Shaw, the owner of Shaw Brick Company, the construction of the East Hants Memorial Arena was completed in 1951, which housed this scoreboard. May be familiar to some of you here in council. This facility closed in '93 when the East Hants Sportsplex was first constructed, the first edition, and then the second edition in 2012. So this scoreboard and score clock, I say score clock because there's an analog clock on the board. This was purchased by the East Hants Sport Heritage Society from an antique dealer in Windsor, Nova Scotia. And as I said, the society is looking to donate this to the municipality with the intent that it is displayed at the Sportsplex. So here's a picture, some context of that scoreboard at that original arena in action. A lot of those puck-dense signatures of many of the athletes through this community that, with their slap shots, made some holes in that sign. You can see here the scoreboard clock to the left and the sign to the right. So council approved an art donation policy in 2021, and this is really intended to provide a framework for public art donation requests. This policy references permanent or temporary work of art created by artists. There is also a section in there that talks about, pieces of art that aren't created by an artist. And so, we believe that, this is a unique case. It could fit within that context. In terms of installation costs, this specific case, we recommend that council, if they were wanting to accept this donation, that an assessment be completed by a qualified engineer just to ensure that the installation is done appropriately and that it's safely, secured within the Sportsplex facility. And so we have that cost there at $5,000, which could be funded through general contingency. This aligns with the strategic plan of Strong Community, as this really fosters pride in place, showcasing the communities in East Hants. The legislative background on this, and again, there's the letter from Health Canada. So the puck-dented panel is a old Export A tobacco sign, and the Federal Tobacco and Vaping Products Act does prohibit advertising of tobacco. But the East Hants Sport Heritage Society did receive written confirmation from Health Canada that panel itself wouldn't meet that criteria as considered promotion under this act, and therefore it can be displayed as it is. Further to that, we've done our own legal review and confirmed that there's no provincial law that would override that as well. So really that letter would stand for what we need to display that panel with the clock. And so I've mentioned the costs already, which we have there. I can bring up the letters if you wish. They were attached to this package, and the recommendation is presented there that the estimated cost to install the scoreboard, to accept the donation of the scoreboard under the municipal art donation policy with the municipality covering the installation cost, and the recommended motion there before you.
Thank you for your report. First up to speak, the warden.
Thank you. I struggled with this one, folks. I'm a great history buff, and I think this clock and everything is, the coincidence, the whole idea of this coming back to East Hants, it's great historically and that, but I do struggle with tobacco and tobacco advertising because cancer kills, and killed my dad, and smoked pack or 2 packs of Export A cigarettes a day for years, died of lung cancer. So I struggled with it. I really, truly did. But then I looked at it And I thought, we're not displaying this as an advertisement for folks to go out and try to recreate the Export A experience. We would like to display it as a memorial to something that was in the community and, was, and those puck dents and everything, and it's certainly a very interesting piece. So I guess as much as I struggled with it, I'm not going to make the motion, but at the end of the day, I guess I came to the conclusion that I could live with the Export A part of the score clock. One question I do have is, this would be put up for display. I'm assuming that the clock is not operational or would not be made operational, or is that something we've even looked at?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the score clock itself has obviously the home and away score numbers. So the East Hants Sport Heritage Society did work with the electrician to have those numbers be lit as LED. So when it would be displayed, the idea is that it would show the last score of the game that was played at the arena, which they have. So that would be lit up, but it wouldn't be a functional clock, but the lights would be lit up.
So it wouldn't show the game in progress, it would show the last game?
Yeah.
That sounds very confusing to me.
Last game of the
So-
East Hants Arena.
To further context, this scoreboard wouldn't be in the arena of
Okay.
Keith Miller Arena or any arena where the game is happening. So it wouldn't function as the scoreboard. We could certainly look at more options, but the intent right now is we have a location in the upper lobby area where that could be more displayed with context of the history below to really give people a chance to read the story and things like that. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. no problem.
Next up, Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Scott. Very interesting presentation, Scott. And I have to say, I also kind of struggled, I guess, as the warden said, just with the whole tobacco context. But my conclusion was certainly the historical value is outweighed that consideration, at least in my mind. But I did have, Scott, a question for you about, I'm just having trouble squaring this. It could be a minor point, but in Alain Richard's Health Canada letter, December 17, 25, they're very specific that the approval would be for, it says in the Sportsplex Museum Hall of Fame area. And I noticed that the proposed motion says something along the lines of mounting in the East Hants Sportsplex in a location as determined by staff. Can you just maybe reconcile why aren't we as specific as the approval, which is very specific?
Through you, Mr. Chair, great question. And so when that letter, first went, obviously, we weren't in this conversation of where, how the donation was going to work and where it was going to be displayed. I know, so the staff would work with the Sport Heritage Society to have that historic context displayed. So I think in those conversations from the East Hants Sport Heritage Society, they really confirmed that this would be showcasing the history. And as the Sport Heritage Society does have a piece down the hallway in the Sportsplex, which you are familiar with, I want to clarify that in the area where we would put it wouldn't be part of that leased area, but it would be kind of an extension of that where we would showcase the history. So I understand the confusion there. We do have a specific spot of where we would want to put it that would showcase that history and tie in those elements that exist from this sport heritage history kind of walk of fame, you call it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess just being completely blunt and candid, if we were to put it in an area outside of the Sportsplex Museum Hall of Fame area, that would be outside of that area, it would be contrary to the permission. So are you saying that if it did fall a little bit outside, that we would simply extend the zone to abide by their, I wouldn't want to be contrary to what their approval is. That's my point.
No, through you, Mr. Chair. I think, once we have if the approval is from council, we can certainly even clarify with Health Canada as well, just where that's going to have that context if needed. But yeah, we would essentially extend that zone as as this is sport history and speaking to that context of, they mentioned kind of museum-like history. It would just be an extension of that context, right?
Okay.
Whether it's their area or ours, we're creating our own historic zone of sport heritage, you
Yeah,
would say.
yeah.
So I think we'd be fine to work within that, but we
Yeah.
can certainly get
Not,
clarification.
not to belabor it, but what we wouldn't
Yeah.
see is that for it to be, in rink B or something like
Yeah,
that.
no.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
really, in or close to that area.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, as well as same concerns with the warden and my fellow counselor, because it's a panel, it's not the clock. The clock is separate, that's just a panel, it's an advertising panel that is placed next to the clock.
In conjunction,
Yeah, in conjunction, because at those old arenas, those would be switched out too with different advertisers, depending upon the time of year. This was just the last advertiser that was at that rink, so that's why I kind of was thinking the same way about that. I would expect that somewhere in the historical writing below, that there would also be a disclaimer placed by the municipality about the dangers of smoking and all that stuff as well, because I think that would be the most responsible thing to do to show that, the dangers of smoking. I played in rinks all across Canada with my job in the military. Old rinks that still had some of these old clocks and stuff in them, and one panel would be from the 19 whatever, and the other panel would be from this, based upon the advertisers of the day of how they wanted to split the revenue for the rink every year. I did pick up the same thing that Councillor Merriam did in the displaying of it. It specifically says in the historical area, and if it's not going to be in the historical area, I do believe we should reach out to Health Canada and tell them it's not going to be directly in that wing, but it's going to be adjacent to that wing, because they're very specific in their details. And I know, when we give details, whether it's a development agreement or anything else, and those details are specific, we make sure that they're followed specifically, or we try to hold the people to those details as specific as possible. And I believe we should have to follow the same thing. If we're given direction from Health Canada that it doesn't violate their rules for advertising, as long as it's in this area, then we have to abide by that or seek further approval. That would be my caution and my wish going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Next up, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question through the staff. Do you have any indication of the size of the donation, as in?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say the size, you're looking at about 8 feet or more on the width and about 5 to 6 in height. So, and then the scoreboard and the panel are about equal size. The panel is a little bit smaller than the clock. Yeah.
Okay. 8 by 4, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You look at the picture in the old room.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the picture, and that's the reason I'm asking. It's,
It only has one panel, not two.
Just one panel. Yeah.
okay. And the second one is, according to policy, it says, the donor assumes all costs associated with delivery and installation. I'm just curious to why the motion is passing it on to the residents, that's all.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I think in this particular case, where this is being mounted in the facility that we own and operate, it's important that we have that engineered assessment done, and it's done and controlled by the municipality is our recommendation. When we work with contractors, want to ensure insurance, WCB for this type of work. So there's a lot of contract management in terms of the install with this. And with that reason, really recommending that we as a municipality cover that cost and manage the install.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sandgard and Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you just scroll up to the motion, please? Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. Move that the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committees to council to accept the donation of the East Hants Memorial Arena scoreboard from the East Hants Sports Heritage Society with the intention of mounting in the East Hants Sportsplex in a location as determined by staff with installation costs to be funded from general contingency.
And it's moved by Councillor Garden Cole, seconded by Councillor Merriam. On before the motion, Councillor Musa, Councillor Perry, and myself. Councillor Musa. I'll give you a little leeway before, right?
Yeah, thank you. Well, in the report, they said the donor assumed all costs associated with the donation, such as delivery and installation. So why we're taking the installation piece on us?
Wasn't that just answered?
Oh, okay. And, sorry. Is there anything in our policies and bylaws about the tobacco advertising in our buildings? Like, do we have to change any policies before we do that? Or?
Oh, no. Through you, Mr. Chair, no, there'd be no policy from the municipality side that we would need to change with this. Yeah.
Okay. And for me, I won't be supporting the motion because, as the warden said, my father suffered for 5 years before he passed away. And the day he died, he was doing like that, just without cigarettes. So I can't support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was gonna ask a question before the motion was made, if this could be done by a government grant rather than the general contingency, because I don't believe it's fair for my residents to pay to have a sign hung on a sportsplex in a hockey rink that they're not allowed to play hockey in. And I just don't think that that's proper for my residents in Mount Uniacke, and as well as Councillor Musa's, and especially where, if you look at the tax revenue that comes from each of our districts, they're two of the top three. And I don't think it's fair that they should have to pay for a scoreboard to be hung in a rink for history of a rink that they're not allowed to play in due to Hockey Nova Scotia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, I'll turn the chair over to, I know I have people to speak after this, but it has to be to the motion. I have leeway because it's on before the motion, so I'm turning the chair over to the warden.
Go ahead.
Interesting discussion because there's a lot of things that, I didn't take into account that councilors have brought up here today. However, I guess my main concern is the $5,000 approximate cost to get this hang. I guess I think it's great for history, and I think it's fitting. It goes in the East Hants Sportsplex. However, are we going outside to get an outside person to say, yep, you can hang it on that wall, the wall will take it, because that seems like an absorbent amount to get an okay and an engineer. Can we do this in-house? Can we do this from an engineer that's in-house? What can we do? Because I think that cost is very exorbitant, and that's my problem with it right there.
Okay. CAO.
Can somebody answer that?
CAO's gonna.
Okay, she's going to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple things on the installation. The cost is up to $5,000. That would include the entire cost. That's not just a cost of getting an engineer to hang to say if it can be hung on the wall or not. Yes, we can likely get that done in-house with, for the checking part. But you really do want to have something of this magnitude done, hung properly in your facility from all kinds of liability issues. Make sure it's secure and whatnot, and that has to be done professionally. I would also say with respect to the cost and where that's funded, you can absolutely fund that through your general government grant program. And the donation policy talks to the donor paying all of those costs. That policy is written with respect to sort of philanthropic donations of art to the municipality. Someone who has art to donate, who can pay for that delivery and installation and whatnot. this group that's donating that is one of your community partnership fund recipients. They get up to $5,000 a year for the Sport Heritage Hall of Fame, which is something that council, it's not just for the Sportsplex, it's for the entire municipality for that Sport Heritage Hall of Fame piece. So that group isn't just inducting people into the Hall of Fame that are from Elmsdale or who can play in that Sportsplex. It is intended to be in the whole community. So I think the recommendation that it be done through general contingency could equally be that it be done through a general government grant. But the reason it's not being done per sort of that philanthropic donation piece is because it is a community partner of yours. And it wouldn't make sense to give them $5,000 to run the organization and then ask them to pay $5,000 to install the sign. This sign will have with it that historic installation piece as well, which is part of the $5,000. So the, a picture like you've seen in the report today, a write-up, that has to be done through, we're not just gonna print something off on paper and stick it on the wall. There's printing costs associated with signage around this as well. So that's all in that $5,000. And if the motion as it's written, if we wanted to say funded from general grant funds, we can do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. When I made the motion, it was, there had been lots of comments, so I didn't feel like I was making it prematurely. And I guess for me, well, first of all, I did think about the aspect of the of advertising tobacco, but then I kind of put it in perspective. I was at my grandson's hockey game before Christmas in East Hants. It was right around noontime, and there were people sitting in front of me having alcoholic beverages, which I thought was odd on a Sunday at that time at a kids' hockey game. But that's the reality, and so you just kind of have to put it in perspective, and that's what I did when making my decision on this. As far as extending our historic area around the corner to accommodate something this size, I think that's what we have to do. I wouldn't think Health Canada would have a problem with that, and I guess we can run it by them just to make sure it's okay, but this is a pretty sizable thing that we'd be putting up. And yeah, as far as the payment, I mean, that Sportsplex is open to absolutely anybody in the municipality and beyond to use it. So that's what I was thinking of when not having a problem with the general funding. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to turn the chair back over to the chair and put myself on.
All right, so Warden, you're up there. Do the motion.
Yes, funding around the Sportsplex is tricky because originally when the original area rate and the other area rate were put on, it was based on the fact that Hockey Canada prescribes where the kids in East Hants play hockey. And it's not the home arena for a lot of kids that play hockey in East Hants. However, a lot of the kids that play hockey in East Hants play in perhaps Brookfield or West Hants, and we don't pay any money to those neighboring municipalities to fund their arenas. And there are children from outside East Hants who play in our arena, so it's a tough situation, and we tried to address it by charging, and it just doesn't work. It is what it is. And those boundaries are what they are. But we do own the Sportsplex now. And it is not just a hockey rink. It does, there's Tide Fest there. There are numerous other things. Yes, given its location, it certainly is more conducive to folks from the area closest to it to attend anything that's held there. Absolutely it is. So, but having said that, I don't object, whether it's from a contingency fund or whether it's from a general government grant, I don't object to that because this area of the municipality pays into the general tax rate just like the rest of us do. And when we put money into Burncoat and into a skate park in Mount Uniac or whatever, we do that with an understanding that the general rate puts money into things all over the municipality. And $5,000, up to $5,000 is not a significant amount of money. And, yeah, so whatever way the most of council is comfortable with that, I'm prepared to support it. And, whether that be straight from a general rate or whether that be a government grant, because we do general government grants to various areas of the municipality for different things. And if that's, keeps it cleaner and a better way to go, I'm certainly supportive of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren.
Yes, to the motion, and for the reason that it currently says general contingency, the area I represent and district, the neighboring district are 17% of the population and contribute almost 30% of the revenue. So when money goes into our area, it's our own money coming back. It's not coming from anywhere else. And it's Hockey Nova Scotia that does not allow kids to play hockey here. And the hockey players in my area pay 5 to 8 times more a year in travel. They have an afternoon game in Yarmouth they have to travel to back and forth. An afternoon game in Digby, one in Shelburne, because of the boundaries. And so those families to play hockey are incurring a higher cost. And now I have to tell them that their tax money is going to put a sign up in a rink that they're not allowed to play in. And also for a sports hall of fame that literally has nobody from that side of the municipality even in it. So I will not support the motion.
Okay. I don't want to turn this into a back and forth, and I appreciate everybody's opinion. Okay? I'm just saying, right, speak. Right? Seeing no one left to speak, there's a motion on the floor, and so I will call for the vote. Okay, so there was, 7-4 and 2 against, Councilor Noosa and Councilor Perry voted yes. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of that topic and to go to adjournment. And we'll schedule a little over break, so we'll schedule a break to turn to, construction operations at 10:50. That would work. And at the sound of the gavel.
Get everybody to sign in. I'll sign you. There you go. You were on your phone there. All right, welcome back. We're going to call to order the Infrastructure and Operations Committee. Approval of the minutes of May 19th, 2026. Does anybody see any errors or omissions? Seeing no comments, the minutes are approved. We'll now move on to the Barney Brook summary, and I will let the presenters introduce themselves.
Through you, the chair. Hi, I'm Jared, and I'll be presenting on the Barneys Brook Flood Risk Mitigation Study. Let's bring it up there. Okay, we're on the screen. So yeah, I just wanted to, I guess I'll start with the project summary and the key highlights. So the key highlight here is that the CN Rail culvert near the outlet of Barneys Brook is a major contributor to the flooding bottleneck. Upgrading the culvert could reduce peak flows or peak levels by up to 3.1 meters under severe storm conditions and should be the priority. Each scenario increasingly impacts properties between Eisner Road and Robert Scott Drive. The project scope was to complete a hydrologic and hydraulic assessment of a defined study area along Barneys Brook, which was located in Lance, is utilizing LiDAR data and modeling software. The study area extends from the Barneys Brook intercept with the Shubenacadie River up to Nova Scotia Trunk 14. The goal of the project was to map the flood extents within this study area and identify flood risk zones and identify any undersized or damaged culverts along this extent. The study area is as shown there. The northern black line along here is Highway 14, which was the upper extent of the study, and the lower extent of the study was the confluence of Barneys Brook with the Shubenacadie River. The length was approximately 8.5 kilometers in length. There's 4 different scenarios or conditions, storm intensities that were mapped, increasing. There was a 5% AEP, formerly known as a 1 in 20 year storm, a 1% AEP condition, which is formerly a 1 in 100 year storm, and then both of these conditions projected out with climate change to 2100. These next 4 slides are the increasing flood scenarios, storm intensities. If you kind of look at the southern or lower part of the extents, I'm not sure if you see my map or my mouse, I don't think you do, but the lower part of the screen is where the Shubenacadie River or Robert Scott Drive area is. And if you look at the northern part towards Milford, you'll see some ponding happen there. So if kind of focus on those as we go to the next couple slides, you'll see those extents are kind of the areas of concern. So this is a 1 in 100 year storm. You can kind of see those areas get a little bigger. This is the 1 in 20 year storm with climate change. We see it bigger again, and slightly bigger with a 1 in 100 year storm with climate change. So the areas of concern that I just mentioned were kind of the outlet of Barneys Brook at the CN Railway, the Highway 2 culvert near Robert Scott Drive, Highway 2 between Barneys Lane and Myers Lane, and the Highway 102 is kind of the areas of concern. You can see on the right-hand side of the table is the difference in high water mark between, I guess, the impacts of climate change is what we can expect to see in those areas. This would be without any mitigation. Looking now at these areas of concern, this is a close snap of what it would look like down at Barney's Brook at the CN rail. You can see kind of the railway acts as a berm with a lot of water being held on the left side of the screen there. This is Highway 2 near Robert Scott Drive. So just kind of zooming out a little bit, same area in a sense. And you can kind of see the flood extents in the residential areas there. Continuing to move down, here's Highway 2 between Barney's Lane and Myers Lane. Substantial flooding. Again, these are all 1 in 100 scenarios with climate change. This would be looking up towards the Milford Business Park. Kind of behind the rec area, there's some ponding, and there's some ponding that not overly impactful to existing business or infrastructure in the business park. The mitigation options that were presented in the study, there were 4, and beyond, or I guess recommendation 4 is more of a housekeeping item, and the other 3 items should be done in sequence, in order, prioritizing recommendation 1. Recommendation 1 is upgrades to the culverts underside the CN rail, and then moving up to Highway 2, a culvert upgrade there, and then a Highway 14 culvert upgrade. We're going to look at each of these upgrades and just kind of the impact of the upgrades. So this is the change in flood extents with upsizing of the CN rail culvert. Just looking at kind of the streets through there, pretty much all of them are no longer flooded, I guess, with this upgrade at the CN rail. Just to quantify it, you can kind of look at those 3 culverts there on the left, the one near Highway 14, Highway 2, and then Barney's Brook. As we go down the list, you can see on the right, there's an elevation difference. This would be the change in high water with implementation of the CN rail culvert recommended upgrades, which you can see here is 3.1 meter difference is the maximum change, and there's substantial change in all locations, so upwards to 10 feet reduction in high water levels. This would be the second recommendation to upsize the culvert at Highway 2 near Robert Scott Drive. There is not as substantial impacts. As you look at the 2 pictures side by side, they look rather similar. There is some flood reduction there on the west side of the screen. This would be quantifying that. So upsizing that culvert at Highway 2 would create an elevation difference of 0.23 meters. So we're talking 8 inches would be the change, and it's very localized. Here they only present the impact at that location, not the impact throughout the actual entire brook. So this would be showing that recommendation 1 can kind of produce 10 feet results in change in water level, while this one is only about 8 inches. Recommendation 3 would be up at Highway 14 near Moxham Road. Less impact to residents up in this area, as most of the flooding was in the wooded area there, as you can see in the image. So this would be before and after, again, their recommended upgrades for that culvert. That culvert would reduce the flood behind that road there by about 1.3 meters. So there is, but something to note, I guess, is all of these reductions would be behind the culverts. So implementing the lower one down would be the highest priority because it would create upgrades for the entire river, or it would be seen throughout the entire watershed versus just completing, say, recommendation 3 and not doing the others. You'd only see reductions north of our study area and likely increased in flood levels below as we let increase flow down. Recommendation 4 would be the debris cleanup on the channel maintenance. This is more or less just a housekeeping item that is just put in there, assuming that the study was done, that the channel was not plugged up or dammed or any jams in it, and is just proposing that we keep it maintained and clean of debris. Dylan is recommending that we share this information with the infrastructure owners. The CN Rail infrastructure is obviously owned by CN Rail, and then the two highway intercepts are owned by the province. So it would be to share that information with the owners and to advocate for upgrades. The staff recommendation is as shown on the screen there. Yeah, I guess that's the highlights of the study.
Thank you so much. We have a few people here coming on with questions. First up, Councillor Tingley.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for the report. I'm just going to move the motion as recommended, move that the Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend to Council that Barney's Brook Flood Mitigation Study presented at the June 2026 meeting of East Hants Executive Committee be shared with CN Rail, MP Blois, MLA McDonald, that a letter be sent to MP Blois requesting federal support in championing a culvert expansion project in collaboration with CN as per the sizing recommendations in the report, and that municipal staff set up a report overview with Nova Scotia Department of Public Works technical staff.
Moved and seconded. On before the motion, there's 4 people to talk. First up is Councillor Head.
Mr. Chair, through you to the staff, the presenters. I noticed that the recommendations is to have larger culverts across the roads and stuff, which only makes sense. And the major problem is down at the rail bed. So by making a larger culvert, that means that the water is gonna get away a lot quicker, which means it's gonna go to the Barney, down to the rail bed that much quicker again. So with the size of the culvert that's there, is that gonna handle the extra flow of the rate that's gonna come? Because the way it is there now, it would be slower because of the restriction of the culverts, but when you open a culvert up bigger, it means the water's gonna flow much faster.
Go ahead.
No,
Okay. Go ahead.
Through Mr. Chair, everything in the report with these culvert sizings, it has to be in strategic sequence, and that's part of the discussion of Public Works. We would share the report and say, there's an opportunity to mitigate some flooding if you do this section on Highway 2, but don't do it before any work happens on the CN rail, because there's a sequence and you have to start from the river and work your way up. Otherwise, you can inundate and make certain areas worse. The overall rate and flow at the CN rail, I'm not worried about the expediting of flow, because it's going out and will disperse very quickly across the other side of it, and it opens up right to the river. And the velocity at Blacksmith Brook would be in isolation. However, that one specifically, like I said, absolutely can't happen until the CN rail one happens. That's the critical conversation, and that's why that meeting with Public Works is so critical, is to make sure that they have that in their asset listing, that yes, it's something that can be done as they plan their climate adaptation, but not unless that other one happens. So I just wanted to provide that perspective.
Yeah, no, and that's what I was understanding too, but I want to make sure that I was right in what I was thinking. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up to speak, Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to acknowledge for our residents, especially in District 6, North Lance and Milford, just our awareness of the extent at which there are not one or two, but I believe 3 significant areas that could be affected by the extreme flooding events. And certainly council is putting forward proposing the motion today in an effort to work with other partners to address the situation, hopefully with a great degree of urgency, just because of the catastrophic implications that could arise in the event that we have more flooding. I do have a a question that pertains to the 1% annual exceed probability for 2100 climate in the climate change scenario. And this would be for the Director of Planning. And my question is that I believe, if I understand correctly, this is new information for council in terms of here it is. And my question is, from this point forward, in considering property development applications, is this the new standard by which we're evaluating criteria? And how will this be affecting our policies? You know, how and when, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, great question. So on an interim basis, as applications are coming forward, we're sort of dipping into this new information and we'll bring it along with our application summary. Longer term, we have some money in the budget through the plan review to try and reconcile. We actually have 3 different sources of information related to floodplains now, and we need an expert to kind of go through those. This is another piece of information, so we're hoping at the end of that to get some recommendation on the current floodplain zoning, the moderate and the high risk, and make adjustments according to the recommendations that come from that study.
Thank you. And perhaps I could draw attention to slide 16 just for reference. And as I recall, there's a left and right picture. And I think my comment here was the fix, once done, if I understand correctly, in the climate change scenario, 1% EAP 2100 climate change, it brings it back. This is a question, I guess, if I understand correctly, the fix brings it back to the current 1 in 100 event, non-climate change. Is that a fair characterization?
Through you, the chair. So the one on the left is existing conditions amplified with climate change.
Yes.
And the one on the right would be with the culverts proposed installed.
Yeah, and so the left is 2100.
Yeah.
The right is the fix. And I don't know if you have a slide that puts the right with what it is currently, but by comparing it, perhaps they're on different pages. I think they're very similar in appearance. And I guess my comment is when we're evaluating things going forward, I think we'd all agree there's going to be a period of time that it will take working with other parties for the fix to happen. I mean, it could be a while. And, I guess that's just my comment that we're not there yet. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merriam. Next up to speak, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recommendation 1 is CN culvert upgrade. Have you any consultations or any other parts of the province where CN has okayed culvert upgrades to municipalities? If you're going to add a second one or disturb the rail bed?
Through you, the chair. I'm not familiar with any actual CN rail upgrades to this magnitude or any, I guess. I have asked our consultant who made these recommendations if he's aware of anything of this size or scale or can comment on that, but I don't have that information at this time.
Recommendation 2 and 3 deal with culvert upgrades on highways. Now, can you do that without destroying the roadway as you put another culvert in, or can you do it without and traffic can still flow, or is that going to be a shutdown time?
Through you, the chair, there'd be limitations on the size of culverts. So once you get so big, you can't be trenchless, I guess. So there would be interruptions. The upgrades were on Trunk 2 and Highway 14. I would presume that they would be able to work around the upgrades, that they're not abnormal. The big one is the CN rail, as it is a substantial project, essentially, with the height of the rail.
Just thinking about emergency services, and the last one is the recommendation 4, channel maintenance. Now, I'm assuming that's the stream bed or that you're referring to?
Through you, the chair, that is right. Yeah, it would be actually, so any beaver dams or debris or down trees or anything that could be kind of hold back water during a storm or plug up the river and just cause problems. So they don't really show what that scenario would look like because it's more or less just a housekeeping item.
So if a resident cut down trees over a water course, would they be responsible for removing that debris?
I'm not sure the response to that, but I would assume that you can't dam a stream.
Let's say it's not dammed, the water still flows. But there are branches and pieces of wood that are over top of the stream, and the water still flows, but there could be, as time passes, a gathering of material that would affect the flow of water. And I'm referring to a resident on Elmwood who cut down some trees in the backyard, and they're laying over the brook and also on the Elmsall Lumber's fence. And
I believe that would be a conversation for the Department of
Yeah.
Environment, because the Department of Environment owns all water courses.
So
I think it's out of scope of this study. They won't be able to give you the environment's ruling, but Jesse might have a way to weigh in on that
Yes.
as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that kind of conversation becomes a potential civil matter, similar to if you reshape your property to the detriment of your neighbors, that water intrusion on your neighbor's property, it's a civil matter between two entities. And so someone would have to document and prove the actions of someone that they diverted water, and it would be a case in that scenario. It would be challenging to document, but that there is a risk to the individual that was doing the action that it could come back to them, but it would be through civil litigation likely. It would be my suggestion.
the business reached out to me because of the action that was taken by the owner, so that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Mitchell. Councilor Tingley to the motion.
Well, through the chair, if you just give me 2 seconds, may not be to the motion, but I just wanted to thank staff for this report. If I didn't already say it, especially Jesse for getting this started and staff for moving this along. This is meaningful work that hopefully will help the residents in this area mitigate their risk and hopefully will allow us to do more development in that general area. But thanks very much for the good work.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm going to turn this over to the warden now, because I wanted to speak before the motion was made. Thank you, Warden. Thank you for your report. It's a good report. I really like how you staged the recommendations. When looking at the water course of Barney's Brook, was any consideration or any historical stuff done for infilling of properties into the brook natural course way? Because there's been talk that we've heard from residents here during construction, developers try to make the lots look bigger by infilling towards the river, the impact on the infilling, what it would have on the flooding.
Through you, Madam Warden. The study was completed with recent LiDAR data, and so that would be only so accurate, or would be a timestamp of information. However, they did go out and truth the data. So there was a survey piece to this here where they actually surveyed. It wasn't a bathymetric study, however, there were truths taken to validate the data that was used. So it should be a relatively accurate, without a bathymetric study completed on the river.
So it's complete as to this date and this time.
Correct.
Not taking in anything before, anything that was done to alter the river, to alter the banks that could contribute to flooding?
That would be correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I just
like-
want to make sure that, because some of those factors have been discussed in this chamber before and have been brought up multiple times. The other question I have is, if we increase the flow and we get the flow going through towards the Shubenacadie River, what is the impact on the Shubenacadie River and its banks at high tide? Has that been looked at?
That was considered in the report. They did document tidal heights and the impact of that flow. and
Because
with
I know
high
at
water
some
mark.
areas, I believe in the corridor, the river does kind of breach and go into some areas. They built some berms to kind of hold it back. I was just wondering if by dumping that extra water in at a higher rate into the river at high tide might cause a secondary effect somewhere else, if that's known at this time.
I would assume that that has been considered in their report, as they did comment on the tidal effects of the river.
Okay. Other than that, that's all I had, so thank you.
All right, seeing no one else left to speak, we'll go to the vote, and then I'll turn the chair back to the chair. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and thank you for your presentation. Next up, we're going to have firefighting ponds at the Waste Management Center. And Director will be doing that. Presenter 1, Presenter 2. Whenever you're ready.
Perfect, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So in September, this past September, council requested a report on exploring potential installation or enhancement to the Waste Management Center for fire pond installation. That was in response to the significant drought season of last summer. Staff did reach out to the East Hants Fire Service, looking and reviewed online benchmarks, and believe that the sizing, if a updated pond, there's some small ponds existing on the Waste Management Center. They're not necessarily used for firefighting currently, but we would look for a sizing in the range of 600,000 imperial gallons based on our benchmarking, which is tied to the equivalent in what is what was found to be a 24-hour firefighting period, essentially, to enable that. And to do so would also incorporate the installation of a dry hydrant. And this report facilitates the conversation as a whole. I mentioned that there's operating reserves available, but I'll go into some of the topics within the report. So sizing, as mentioned, we went in and did look up flow rates, best practice based on different agencies that have online reports on the topic, and it matches up on sizing. What's thought to be the best practice sizing is matched up with what's at the 9 Mile River Fire Hall in behind it. So they're set up exactly with the same sizing as where staff ended up with in their consideration of what would be the most appropriate. And conceptually, just kind of what a sizing, I apologize, it's hard to see the square, but to give an idea of sizing, there's a little box, and that's the exact size of the footprint of the 9 Mile River Fire Department pond, and that's what it would look like of a footprint at the Waste Management Center in one location. That's near the scale house. Another location, there's this blue box. I was constrained by the technology I was using online, of what it would look like if we had it over between the transfer station and the administrative building. That's also near our wood pile of note. Or a third location in between the metal pile, if you will, And these are just hypothetical locations to give an idea of size and saying, yeah, space size on the, for the Waste Management Center, it's not a stretch. There's lots of space. Operating approvals, we would have to consider potential questions that may need to be answered or extra information that would have to be reviewed by Nova Scotia Environment. Looking through and just being conscious that we've got or considerate of the 33 groundwater wells that we are required to monitor to make sure the leachate from the site, there isn't leachate that's impacting the external environment. It's a part of our regulations. So we want to make sure that we would be building in compliance to that. It's not thought that any permits would be needed unless you're building a pond within a certain distance from a water course, which none of these recommended hypothetical locations are thought to be. There are some other water courses near the south of the site that we'd want to stay away from, which is the catch-22, because being near a water course is a great way to refill your fire pond. But this is a new topic for staff. We're just looking at it at a high level. So, and just operationally, staff look at this as a opportunity for providing a level of risk reduction for a municipal operating site. So typically the governance of firefighting ponds is done by the fire service in East Hants. They identify where dry hydrants could go or should go, the installations of ponds, if there aren't ponds, and there's an active map that the fire service provided that was attached to this report showing their different infrastructure, noting that there is some work where the fire service did some work to access a pond north of the site as well, or a stream, Laddie's Brook. North of the site, it's about 7 kilometers away, but that's not with a dry hydrant, and the brook would be accessible depending on the season. So maybe there's water in the brook, maybe there's not. So that's the thing with those access points. So that's the lens. And so just from a governance side, to keep in mind that staff would look at this and setting it up as this would be an opportunity potentially to mitigate risk on the site if it was pursued further. It might help with insurance overviews or consideration from our insurance provider if we were doing that. Those are some benefits. The fire service, if there was a major emergency, the fire service would have access to our site. There would be, in the case of emergency, they have access. So, but it wouldn't be set up for continuous access necessarily. It'd be behind the gate. So it's not like it'd be something that the municipality would be in the business of setting these up for the fire service, unless that was the intent of council, which is a bigger conversation that I would suggest we would require a follow-up debate, not intended for this one. So options, do nothing. Keep going on. We had a fire at the site in 2018. A fire pond wasn't required, but there was a lot of trucks on site and they did have to refill. And if, it's just going to be able to respond to a fire and mitigate risk sooner and faster with the pond. Not a bad thing. But we have had a fire in the past. It was a big event for our site. We lost the transfer building structure and had to rebuild it. So we could design a pond and have like a real detailed technical review. Thinking a technical review, trying to really earmark the best location could be in the range of $20,000 to study it, or just build it. So just build something because we can without a permit, as per what we were looking at, and that might only cost $20,000, including, so in the range of $15,000 to $20,000. We've got staff with that background of putting in ponds outside of watercourse areas. They're thinking that would be in the realm of reasonable, and the addition of dry hydrant infrastructure around $5,000, that's a conservative estimate. The fire departments have been able to put them in for much cheaper. And that's just the information collected. So staff don't have a recommended motion. It was a really interesting topic to dive into and consider. But if it was something executive committee wanted to recommend to council to explore further, we would suggest that executive committee made a recommendation in the guise of staff coming back with a budget item for debate at budget time for next fiscal. And then staff could build in a tighter scope with more details if that's something that executive committee wanted council to partake in or support. And I'll open up for questions.
Thank you. First up to speak, the warden.
Well, a number of factors here. Absolutely, a fire pond there would be protection for the landfill and useful, for the entire municipality. As far as fire departments using it for other things than fires at the landfill, well, absolutely, they have the right to use and access water sources in times of emergency. And I don't think they'd have any interest in going to a pond at the landfill if it wasn't an emergency, unless it were for training purposes, when they would ask for permission or whatever. So I don't think that really enters into it. If they're needing access to that water, it's because there's a fire somewhere, and they've determined that that's the closest and easiest to access supply. So I don't have a problem with any of it that way. As far as putting a pond in, we've got loads of land there. We've got engineers on site. If we can dig a pond that serves purpose and put in a dry hydrant, why, I'll wait for others to comment, but it just seems like we shouldn't overcomplicate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up, Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Jesse, just a general question. With other waste management facilities in the province, I would kind of guess that this would be a common occurrence to have a pond and dry hydrant along the lines of what you're proposing. Do you know offhand, would this be unique? Would it be kind of common? And I know I'm catching you off guard with the question.
Through Mr. Chair, it's an excellent question. I apologize. I don't necessarily have an answer. Every site would have a sedimentation pond, and as do we as well at the southern end. Some of the sites, their sed ponds are significantly large and may be used as an option as well. But specifically for a firefighting option, I'm unsure. We didn't do the benchmark on that, so I don't have an answer. I apologize.
Curious, that's okay. When I looked at Google Street View at Laddie's Brook, I swear I could see a little hose coming out of the a PVC tube or something. I'm just curious, is there something kind of informal there for hookup?
Through Mr. Chair, staff believe there is. I didn't go out in the site. So there was official access. So different street views will show you the different setup, but there was a more formal landing pad, if you will, of gravel that was installed, and it was by the fire service for accessing. Official pipe work, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Could you tell me on at our facility, the square pond near the front entrance, do you know the history of, like, why was it built? Why was it built? What was the purpose of that? I was just curious.
Through Chair, officially, I don't know. I would suspect that it was historic staff members looking to build in that kind of option. We've got heavy equipment on site, and that was within their capability, and they were trialing it to give it a try.
During that fire, was that particular pond used at all?
I don't believe it was. So in the, through you, Mr. Chair, what was used for firefighting during that event was there was the trucks that responded, and then a tanker truck from Halifax was brought in to supplement water so that trucks weren't having to leave the site to fight.
Okay, yep, thank you, and I'll just weigh in as well. I think given all of that, I like the idea of just build it with the costs that you identified with the dry hydrant in a location that makes sense. I know we have talked to the fire service about sizing. I'm just thinking out loud, the warden made the comment that perhaps they wouldn't use it a lot or at all, but I'm just thinking maybe it would be useful to check back with them to see if there would be a more optimal location, just with, getting big vehicles in. But I would say again, without doing I'd rather spend the money on doing it as opposed to having a study done. Thank you. You're going to comment on that, Jesse?
Well, through Mr. Chair, I did talk to so Tyler Daphne, the head of the East Hants Fire Service. We had a conversation of needed versus he's thrilled with the idea of having something on site. Not just anything more is supported by the fire service. Needed they'll use with. They're great. They're very resourceful as a fire service. They'll use whatever's available. Right, so whatever's the most available, best option is what they're going to use, and
Yes.
if they have more options, they'll use them. That was essentially the conversation we had on the phone. So there's no definitive yes or no, or we must have. It would be better if it was over here or there. They're like, more is great.
And I believe Adam's going to weigh in on this as well.
Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Chair, just to comment on the councillor's questions there. If council does go ahead forward with this recommendation, there is opportunity to bring it to either the chiefs themselves for additional input or to your fire advisory committee. The recommendation talks about putting it in your next year's fiscal budget. So in the interim, we have other engagement tools in the local fire departments that would be responding and so forth can provide that additional value to make sure that should council pass it in their budget, that it is or could be used for the fire service, and I know Jesse's done some really good preliminary engagement with them, and then as well too, like having some additional water on hand is good for the fire service. They do have mutual aids with auto dispatch that does bring in a lot of trucks instantly, but it is, when you're dealing with potentially large fires at sites like this, it does require volume, which is identified in the director's report. So just noting that there are other opportunities for input with the fire service.
Thank you, Adam. Next up to speak, Councillor Hepp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very good conversation, and I think it's very well needed to have a pond out there for sure. As we've seen, we had a fire in the past, and for me, it only makes common sense to have it. That we've got the land, and that we can do it at a very low expense. So I'm going to move a recommended motion there for executive committee to consider requesting a pond be added to the next fiscal budget review for consideration if there is a deemed priority for the municipality.
Moved and seconded. On before the motion, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My thought is, why wouldn't you do it? Why study this to death? All you have to do is look at the fires that have been taking place at the Hants West landfill site down there. It only makes sense. Look where you're surrounded. You're surrounded by woods. That there is enough to say, yeah, let's go dig a pond. And the warden's quite correct. When you have a water source, that it can be tapped by anyone in an emergency. So it only makes common sense to do this. And I'm not going to ask a dozen one questions around it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some numbers, working with my calculator in the report. Lance's new Quint with a 1250 pump with access to 600 imperial gallons would last 8 hours. And a 1250 pump with 100,000 gallons would last 1.3 hours. The porter tank we tested last week in Elmsdale, 250 imperial gallons, lasted 2 minutes. Just some numbers to think about.
Thank you, Counselor. Warden Rolston.
Yeah, thank you. Agreeing with Councillor Rhino, and just a point of clarity on the motion, the recommendation was read. The actual motion, I believe, would be to request a pond be added to next fiscal's budget review for consideration. And by doing that, it is deemed a priority by the municipality. Just wanted to clarify if that's the intent. And, okay, so further to Councillor Rhino's comments, I'd kind of prefer not to wait until the next fiscal budget to do anything else with this. I would prefer to look at it sooner than the next fiscal budget, if at all possible, and move things along a little further, because as we've said, we've discussed drought earlier today in other contexts, and that's going to affect things, the historical level of brooks and ponds and lakes and places that fire departments get water may be identified or impacted as well. So I'm going to support the motion, I think, but I just would like to do something sooner than next budget. So I don't know. I don't think I can move an amendment without changing the intent of the motion. So that's, up to the mover and the seconder, but yeah. Those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Last one on before the motion, Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was gonna say the same thing as the warden, like if we know where the money coming from the reserves, we know everything about the project, so why don't we move now instead of waiting for next budget? And something could happen between now and then, so we're gonna spend the money, we know where the money coming from, so if the mover of the motion can withdraw it, we could move on right away. That's my point. Thank you.
Yeah, and it could come also down to workflow, right? We have a lot of projects on the go right now, so I'll turn it over to the CAO to see what she says. Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that is my biggest concern as this conversation evolves. I know Jesse had been in discussion with Evan to talk through pricing and whatnot. I know Evan is tapped out at the moment. So before you can make a motion that it be done this year. I'm just not sure where my internal project management will come from. I'll have to talk with Jesse and Alana between now and council to make sure that we have someone either out at the Waste Management Center who can project manage the project, or somewhere else in the organization. I just don't know at this point in time, but we'll definitely have that conversation around where the capacity lies to manage it.
Thank you, Warden.
Can I say something?
Oh, CAO.
You're welcome.
You're still on, Counselor
Oh,
Musa.
thank you. It doesn't hurt to have it approved now, like, it doesn't hurt to have it approved now, and if we can move on before next budget, it's a win-win. If not, we'll move on with next budget.
So,
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jesse.
through you, Mr. Chair, if it was the intent to enable the option for this fiscal, the appropriate motion would be to, I'm gonna pad the numbers. I'll suggest approving $30,000 to be funded from the solid waste operating reserve for the implementation of an expanded firefighting pond, including dry hydrant, at the Waste Management Center to be implemented as soon as possible within staffing demands or workflow or what have you.
Okay. Everybody's getting on here. To the motion on the floor, Counselor Mitchell.
My question just deals
Hasn't
with,
been withdrawn yet, 'cause
if
everybody
this
else
goes
is weighing
forward,
in.
how would we, fill it? We have, very little snow melt this year and we're in drought conditions, so if you expand it, how are we gonna get the resources to go in, is my question. Thinking outside the box.
Through Mr. Chair, I don't have the answer to that, but it would be something we would have to. I would suggest, at the very least, the construction, if possible, this fiscal. Once it's in place, the status of water would be articulated to the fire service. This is what we have or what we don't have yet, and then we'd have to figure out the recharge options, whether it was bringing in bulk water, whether it was bringing in. We'd have to look at those alternatives,
It would
but
be,
don't have the exact answer because staff hadn't thought to that length or detail yet.
it would be possible with the fire service to think it's a cistern and haul water from the utility to stock it in the initial.
I
Just
think,
thought.
I think we're getting out of scope of what the motion's on the floor at right now, Counselor. I'm gonna go to the mover first. Counselor Hebb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Due to the discussion after I made the motion, I think I'll withdraw my motion, and somebody else can make a motion in regards to what we really need at this time.
Okay, we've now heard the motion's been withdrawn from the mover. The seconder, prior to the mover removing the motion, has agreed to it. Next up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Just with regards to, most fire ponds fill themselves. And I am sure that given the number of monitoring wells that we have at the Waste Management Center, that staff would be able to determine an area there that would have some recharge capability based on how those wells recharge. That would, I'm not an engineer, but that's just my thoughts. So anyway, I'm going to try a motion, and I would move that the establishment of a fire pond at the Waste Management Center be added to this year's workload as possible by staff, with funding up to $30,000 coming from the Solid Waste Operating Reserve. Do I need anything else? Okay.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll go to the vote. And the vote has passed unanimously. All right, that brings us to the end of that one. Next up, we do have an item that was added. We're going to talk about Dory Lane, and the CAO is going to take care of that one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Garden Cole.
Well, I just wanted to discuss what's going on in Dory Lane and Alderney Drive in public forum so that any residents who are watching will know that council is discussing this and just getting up to speed. I did send some photos and an email to my fellow councilors earlier this week regarding I guess what it's regarding is the issue of the truck traffic mainly using Alderney Drive as their main throughway. When residents were at the public information meeting, that question was asked point blank, were they going to be using Alderney Drive as their in and out during the development? The construction of their entire development is basically what the question was, and the representative said no, that they weren't. And so the residents were under the impression that they weren't, but a couple of weeks ago, I guess it's probably been 3 now, when everything started up, it has been nonstop dump truck traffic in and out of Alderney Drive. So just to acknowledge the residents' struggles with this is that at 6:55 in the mornings, I have videos and pictures and all kinds of data of dump trucks lining Alderney Drive, waiting for the 7 o'clock start for them to start shipping in and out, revving their engines. Yeah, it's incredibly disruptive for Alderney Drive. As it turns out, that little throughway that we thought was municipal property turns out to actually be owned by the province. Staff did look into this for the residents, and therefore there is nothing that can be done about the developer choosing to use Alderney Drive as their main in and out. Alderney is already, as we know, a challenging road to get in and out of, and adding this constant dump truck traffic. And I mean, I have never seen a development that has created more dump truck traffic than this one for some reason. But it just goes steady. Anyway, so they are permitted to do that. Jesse, maybe you can elaborate on why they aren't using the Dory Lane.
Actually, okay. Go ahead.
Through Mr. Chair, staff did go out and talk to the site foremans to better understand. That was on, I believe it was the 5th, the Friday, and to understand what the construction schedule or strategy was. The information articulated to staff at that time was that the Alderney access was being primarily used so that the front end work of pipework could be cleared and opened up to get that pipework in and establish the entrance of Dory Lane, which requires upgrades to water and sewer and the connections to the main line. And they were focusing on getting that in the first portion of the project. And once that pipe work was established, then they would start looking to access through Dory Lane more for the remainder of the project, which was that was the articulated message staff received on site.
Okay, although that hasn't started. There's no visible sign of that work starting that they have described as why they are using it. But in saying that, since then, we have learned that they have the right, despite what they told the residents at that meeting, they have the right to cross this provincially owned piece of property and use Alderney Drive. So any hopes that the residents had of getting them to access Dory Lane, as they said they were going to in the meeting, there is no ground to stand on. So they have the ability to use Alderney Drive, which they are using. In the pictures shown, this is
Just 1 second, the CAO wants to weigh in on some of the comments.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to address the comments that were made at the public information meeting. I know our staff reached out to the developer to ask them about those comments that were made and suggest that they shouldn't be using Dory Lane. And there is clarification there. So the public information meeting that was held in June of this year that people are referencing was an application for the land behind this land that they're developing now. So the intent was this land that is being developed as of right. That commitment was not made in June that they wouldn't be using Alderney Drive for this application. What they were referring to was the application that was in front of council or Plan Advisory Committee last month. And my understanding is they would have been using Dory Lane because this development would be built. And then the next development that they were talking about at that public meeting could use Dory Lane. But there was nothing in their documents that said that. It was just a comment that was made at the public meeting. But that public meeting referred to the development that council turned down last month.
So what you're saying is that they were implying that they would only be using Dory Lane if an additional development on top of what their as of right development is.
So the one that
Okay.
we turned down,
Right.
that you turned down last month is the one that the public information meeting was about.
Oh, yes,
So the
okay.
question being, where will the truck traffic go for this particular development,
Yeah.
they were referring to the development that was turned down,
Well,
not this development that is as of right that they had been planning. Like that planning had long been done. They had construction approval to
Okay.
use Alderney Drive for that
okay.
one.
So I can totally understand. I was at that meeting. What the residents were asking was Dory Lane as a whole. So I
Right.
can totally understand the residents taking that for what they thought it was. The residents were concerned about Dory Lane. They weren't concerned about an additional number of units being added, tacked on to what's already as of right. They just thought that when they asked them what they were going to be using, because they were worried about everything that was going to come in and out, and rightfully so.
Yeah, the developer has confirmed that that wasn't in respect to this
Yeah.
development. It
Yep.
was the one that they had in front of council.
Yes, okay. Well, anyway, the residents wouldn't have thought that. They were asking a very general question, and so I can see where they were misinformed on that. And the fact of the matter is,
Counselor, I'd caution you, the topic of the meeting was the expansion, so saying they were misinformed.
I did I use the word misinformed?
Yes, you did.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
didn't mean to say misinformed. I meant to say that they thought they were getting an answer to a question when actually, yeah, it was just a general question for them. So yeah, didn't mean to say misinformed. Anyway, so that's what they thought. And as it turns out, the developer has every right to use Alderney Drive, which is what they didn't realize to begin with. And that's just what I want the residents to know. And the additional part to this is, as in the pictures I sent around, they've cleared it right from one end to the other, and everybody's backyards have been really impacted. And once again, unlike a development agreement where people are sometimes under the impression that, there should be buffers left and whatnot. And what I want the residents to know is that that would be by development agreement. When someone is doing an as of right development, there is no requirement for them to leave a buffer between the neighbors and the development, unfortunately. So I think that pretty much covers it for them. Yeah, it kind of is what it is, and there's really nothing more that we can do from it from a municipal or a council standpoint. I just want to add that, I recognize how impactful it is for these people, their swimming pools, their clotheslines, their backyards, everything has been, is gone. And then we've got this big, I guess it's on top of everything they've got going on in their backyards, they've got all the traffic in their front yards on the road as well. And they weren't expecting that. And I guess that was just a misunderstanding in the wording of that. And yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, I got a couple of questions for staff. On the question of a buffer, like I can understand why people would be very surprised to get up one day and find out everything is just cleared right out behind them. Do we have any means of ensuring that there would be a buffer when there's a development like this?
Through you, Madam Warden. No, not with as of right development, except for things like lake shores where you have to leave a buffer. Through a development agreement, it's possible we could. But generally, if you don't own the property, you need to keep the buffer on your property, I guess, if you don't want to see anything behind you.
We can't put this in a municipal strategy plan or?
I'm not sure how we would, off the top of my head, I don't think so. Unless, for example, along lake shores, it makes sense where you would want a buffer there to leave some natural vegetation to protect the lake. In this case, it's really, I guess, an aesthetic or privacy issue. And now you're burdening one neighbor with providing that privacy or screen for another neighbor.
Well, I'd prefer to burden the neighbor that's coming in versus the person that's there. They wouldn't build a buffer because the forest is already there. Like, it wouldn't make sense for them to build a further buffer on their property, but if there's no other way to do this, that's the answer. But it strikes me there should be a way.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I wouldn't say there's no way. I haven't really thought about it much further than that. And that's kind of the general rule in planning that, you know, you sort of provide your own buffer on your own property for whatever it is you, unless, again, there's some mitigating thing. For example, multi-story, multi-unit buildings, some commercial properties have to provide some level of buffering and screening to low-density residential. This didn't meet that test because it's R1 or R2 and R2.
Okay. If we can get buffers into these developments, if we could cause developers to put a buffer in, I would love to be able to do that, and we can have a further discussion on that. My next question to staff is, I understand they have the right to go out Alderney Drive, but could they be going out Dory?
I'll leave that to Jesse. I mean,
And
our
if you
understanding
know
is
the answer.
because Dory doesn't really exist right now, it's basically a pile of dirt, that their access is much easier while they're laying pipes and so on in what will be Dory. It's much easier for them to come in at the top through Alderney, but
It's not
Jesse
easier,
may know more.
it's not easier for the residents.
Correct.
And this, I find it troubling. It seems like there's a lack of communication as well. Like, this stuff just happened, takes the residents by surprise, or maybe there was communication. But maybe my question is there no communication required to residents before this kind of thing happens? Like, there's a lot of development, a lot of disturbance in where they live and everything like that. It seems to me there should be a communication plan with the community to say, okay, we're gonna have trucks coming in and out of here, dust, dirt, everything. Instead of just showing up one day, cutting all the trees that are in the area. It just, that seems to be totally inconsiderate to me of the people that are living there. And so is there a communication plan around this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, there's not, and there's no requirement. One thing we are looking at for future developments is something called a construction management plan.
Right.
And right now, East Hants has no requirement for such a thing.
Right.
And it does, a document like that, HRM has a requirement that's, looks like a telephone book. It's quite onerous, but it talks about trucking routes and crane locations and waste management and dust, all those usual construction irritants. So it's something we're looking at through the plan review to institute that requirement, probably not as onerous as the HRM one, but that may mitigate some of those issues. Communication we hadn't thought about yet, I guess, but that could be part of it as well. But there's no current requirement for communication.
Okay, because I'm just thinking from my previous life, I dealt with construction, smaller construction projects for the most part. And the contractors I dealt with, there's no way they'd go into somebody's neighborhood and start creating a bunch of dust. Then I'd be getting calls and I would not be a happy person. So those three things, if we can do something about that going forward, that's all the comments I have.
Through Mr. Chair, just to talk about the access of Dory Lane, I would like to flag for Executive Committee and residents that once Dory Lane is established as a road or a section of public road, it's right in, right out. And so there, even if there's still in the back half, if there's construction still going on, if those trucks or vehicles need to turn left, they will need to access Alderney. It's going to be a traffic requirement. They won't be able to turn left once that road infrastructure gets put in place. So I just sitting here, I anticipate that coming up again throughout this process, and I just want everyone to be prepared for it because once that road island gets put in place, you have to abide by the rules of the road. So just wanted to share that.
Okay, next up, Councillor Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to add something else. When they first came in and clear cut all this, they left a little strip along the backyards and there was a blue ribbon. I've got pictures of it from some residents. And they did leave a strip and the residents felt like they were going to leave that. That was going to be the buffer. I don't know why this happened. And then after the fact, then they all got cut. So that left them thinking that there was going to be a buffer in their backyards. And then for some reason, and then it just all got cleared in a second cutting event. Also, this is something I was thinking of. I'm going to make a motion because of a ton of conversation we've already had and don't need to have again, that we write a letter to Public Works and ask them to because of the dangers of Alderney Drive, no different than Dory Lane, or more so than Dory Lane, that they reconsider the requirement of right in and right out at the end of Dory Lane. I don't think I need to repeat why
We
I'm
have a
asking that
mover,
for councillors.
seconded by Counselor Tingley. On before the motion, Warden Rolston.
This is not to the motion.
Not to the motion, you were on before.
Okay, just regarding the buffering and if we were to introduce a buffering requirement, it would have to be introduced for the entire zone, like if it was part of our zoning, and that would apply, you know, if it was 2 single-family dwellings or 2 two-family dwellings or whatever. And in all fairness, I don't think it would be fair, because I built my house this year and I wanted the maximum size in my backyard to clear right to my line, and then expect my neighbor who builds next year to have to leave 15 or 20 feet or whatever of buffering there so that I had privacy in my backyard. And that would be the unintended consequence of doing this, would be to always shift the responsibility for a buffer to your neighbor. So unfortunately, it's just, in my opinion, would not be a fair way to do things. People tend to just assume that because there's woods bordering their property, that they'll always be there. And we shouldn't, as the public, just assume that nobody's ever going to develop that land. And try and keep a buffer ourselves. There's the option to plant a buffer now or put up a fence or whatever to create that buffer. But I would be concerned with requiring it in zoning provisions, because I don't think there would be a fair and reasonable way to implement it. And I don't think that my desire for privacy in my backyard should be the responsibility of my neighbor. That's just how I feel. And so I just wanted to make those comments, that anything that we do to change the requirements, the zoning requirements to regulate things, has very far-reaching consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up, Counselor Tingley.
To the chair, just a couple of comments. As far as the right in and right out, or the right out from the Dory Lane, during construction, I would assume they could have had a temporary road there and had flaggers there to allow them to get in and out. That's my assumption. On the buffer question that the warden is speaking about, I can certainly understand on a one building lot, your neighbor not being able to put a buffer there. But when you're doing a major development and you go clear cut a whole area and leave no tree standing anywhere, I think there's got to be some consideration for that. And I think it could be done if the will was to do it. That's my opinion.
Thank you, and I was going to weigh in before the motion was made, so I'll turn this over to the warden. Yes, I definitely feel for the residents with the traffic they're going through. My residents experience it every day with a rock quarry in the middle of a residential zone, right? So this is a temporary thing for them. This is another 50 years. It's already been going on for more than a decade for my residents. So I definitely feel for what's going on. When it comes to, I'd like to thank Councillor Garden Cole for sharing the pictures, and a lot of the pictures did show properties, the owners have cleared every tree off their property, right to the property lines. And when one person does that, the other person should have the right to do it. It doesn't matter who owns the property, a developer or an individual person. Every property owner has the right to do with the property as they see fit. And this is where we get into where I talked about before earlier today, government overreach. Just because I want to build a duplex, I'm going to have different rules put on me to do what I want to do on my property than somebody who has another property. That's not fair. That's not a fair, just society. That's controlling, and that's something that I really caution anybody to think about going forward. I think it is a good idea that I don't know if the mover is thinking of doing this in that letter, amending it to put in what Councillor Tingley mentioned about during road construction, can they turn left in and left out with proper flagging and proper safety considerations to alleviate some of that traffic on Alderney Lane. I don't know if the province might take that, because I doubt that they're going to put the island in, correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, before the road is finished. So it's one of those things, like, if the road isn't finished, they should be able to go in and out, because the final thing the dump trucks would be used for would be for the paving, I would guess, until they start doing lot development, and then it would be right in and right out.
Through Mr. Chair, I apologize if I provided some confusion on that topic. So during construction, they have construction access, no different. It's the same listing and note in their development approval that they can access off Dory and Alderney for construction purposes, and that's either direction. So they are allowed to do that as per their approval. It's just once any portion of the road becomes a public infrastructure and that island's in, that stops.
Yeah.
So there is a tipping point, and so if they choose to do a partial opening or do the first phase and then do a second phase, that would come into play. And just to clarify that piece.
All right, no, because that's what I was thinking, if that had to be changed. So it's good to hear during the road construction they can do that. It's never easy, right? Everybody wants to keep things the way they are, but the only way to do it is to own everything around you. And that's my final thing.
Okay, thank you. I see no one left to speak. The motion is to write to Public Works and ask for a reconsideration of the Dory Lane right in, right out. We will go to the vote, and then I'll turn the chair back to the chair. Someone has not voted. Someone, okay, the motion is passed by a vote of 8-1. With Councillor Mitchell voting nay. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Warden. Seeing nothing left on the agenda for Infrastructure and Operations Committee, we will adjourn for lunch and reconvene in Planning and Advisory Committee with Councillor Mitchell at 1:30.